Okay, so let's talk about mask making for a couple of minutes. This is something that we have been doing a lot lately, something we've gotten to be pretty good at. We know what fits and what doesn't, what looks good and what doesn't, what works and what doesn't. So we have some skills here. Now, I know that I personally like this style of contour mask. I like the way that it fits, and I like that it doesn't get too close to my mouth. And Creative Grids has come out with this new face mask template, 3 sizes in one, and I like it a lot. I like it enough that I'm carrying it in my shop, so you can find this on the website. So you can see here it has 3 sizes, large, medium, small, some elastic cutting instructions, some really basic cutting instructions on the template itself, but it also comes with this step out here to tell you exactly what to do. But honestly, it's so easy, you don't even really need that. So I'm going to show you how to make one of these, how fast and easy it is, and I'm going to show you a couple of customizations and shortcuts to make it even faster. So to get started, you need a lining fabric, an outer fabric, and then one of the things that I add that is not in their instructions is a filter. So this is, of course, a non-woven, which is the important part of a filter. This is Pellon, and I do have packs of Pellon and elastic and nose bars available on the website. This is my lining fabric, which was cut right off the bolt, so wrong sides together, so you have both right sides out. And then this is my outer fabric, which I've chosen something directional here. The first time I made this, I didn't pay close enough attention, and I just didn't line this up right. So you need to know that this is the nose, this is the chin, so up is with this point. Now I also know for me, I want a medium mask with a 6-inch elastic. So I'm going to line this up with the medium line in these corners, so I don't have to make those 2 cuts. And then I just have to make these 2 simple curved cuts through all the layers. So it's just 2 little cuts. And just like that, you have your mask cut out. Okay, so before I go to the machine, I like to put my elastic on here at the cutting table. I want to pin that in place. So I'm going to put my filter on the wrong side of my lining fabric, flip this over, and pin my elastic in place. Now they're going to have you put your elastic on differently, but this is a lot simpler. So I don't even mark it. I just lay a ruler along here so that I have a 1/2 inch spacing, and just lay a piece of elastic against the ruler, pin it in place. Oops. If it wants to be pinned in place, apparently. And then the same thing up here, 1/2 inch, curl this around, butt it up against that ruler, and pin this in place. And you can see this elastic isn't so long that it's going to get caught up in any of these other seams. So I'm going to pin the other one in place just the same way, and then I'll meet you at the sewing machine. Okay, so now it is time to sew our pieces together. So I've brought over just the pieces that we worked on from the cutting table and a nose bar. So the directions for this don't tell you how to insert a nose bar. I'm going to show you an easy technique to make that happen. So this piece is optional, but it gives you a better fit. And if you wear glasses or you're making this for someone who does wear glasses, this nose bar will keep those glasses from fogging up. So it's important in that respect. Okay, so right sides together on your outer fabric, and we're going to sew this center curved seam, 1/4 inch seam allowance with a back stitch. And then the same thing with the lining pieces. Now these pieces have the filter already in place because we pinned that on at the cutting table. All right. So again, 1/4 inch seam with a back stitch. Okay, we're going to open this first piece up, fold the seam to the right, and we are going to top stitch that down 1/8 of an inch away from the edge all the way from end to end. And this piece has a little curve to it, but as you feed it through the machine, it'll flatten out and you can get your stitch in place. And then you're going to repeat that with your lining, also folding that seam to the right. So both seams were folded to the right, and that becomes important later when we assemble this mask. Okay, so that's that there. And what you've ended up with is this nice curved seam with this nice top stitching. There we go. Same on the lining. That one might be easier to see. Okay, so now we are just going to put all of this together in one sort of a sandwich here. Now that we have right sides together, you can see this seam is going left and this seam is going right. So they are going to nest together beautifully. Just butt right up. Pin that in place. Come around to the bottom of the mask and do the same thing. And then you're going to want to make sure your elastic is sandwiched in between the layers. So lock that in, line up your corners, and put a pin in that, and repeat on the other side. So that is pretty simple. Now all of our layers are pinned together. So now it's just a matter of sewing around the perimeter of this, leaving an opening for turning. So it's across the bottom here is a great place to leave that opening because it's nice and straight. So maybe 2.5 inches works great. And of course, nowhere near a corner. So I'm going to start here a little bit from the corner. 1/4 inch seam, again, 1/4 inch seams. And also I'm going to back stitch over my elastic, since those are sort of pressure points that are going to get a little bit more work. Now you've left a 1/2 inch gap there, so you're only using 1/4 inch for your seam allowance, so your elastic won't get caught in the edge there. And now this top's curved seam, you know, just don't get in a hurry when you sew the seam. That's always the secret to curved piecing, is don't get in a hurry. It's hard to get it nice and straight and smooth if you're flying by at the speed of sound. Okay. All right, and then this bottom is just a nice straight shot from that corner to the center point, and you can see this sort of has a V. So when we get to the center seam, leave your needle down and just make a small little pivot there and keep going. Okay, I'm going to leave my hole for turning. And now we have our whole piece assembled. So clip the corners so you don't have too much bulk there when you try to work them out after we turn this right sides out. Okay, now to turn it and work out the corners. Work out your top curve there, make sure that looks nice. And then I know we all have our favorite tool for working out corners and points. I like to use a hemostat. They're nice and long, blunt tip, so I won't poke through anything and make any holes. But you use whatever you like. See, it just does a nice job. I really like these. Okay, now, if you are not adding a nose bar, the only thing left to do is to straighten up your turning hole here, put a couple pins in it, and then top stitch around the whole perimeter. If you are putting a nose bar in, you're going to want to create a little channel here to make that happen. But we're going to top stitch this in two separate pieces because once that metal nose bar is in here, it's a little trickier to get in here and top stitch. So we're going to top stitch this top edge first. So just 1/8 of an inch away from the edge. And again, working with that curve, so don't get in a hurry. Okay, so now we have that top edge sewn down. Now nose bars come generally about 1/4 to 3/8 of an inch wide and 3 to 4 inches long. This happens to be 3 inches long and about 3/8 of an inch wide. But whether your bar is 1/4 or 3/8 of an inch wide, I like to make a 5/8 of an inch channel. That gives you plenty of wiggle room. And also, I think every sewing machine has a 5/8 inch mark on the throat plate, so that's going to come in real handy. And then you want to make sure that you have half of the distance. So for me, it's 1.5 inches on each side of this seam. So I'm just going to put a ruler on this and pin this. I'm going to go actually an extra 1/8 of an inch for wiggle room so that I know where to start and stop my seam. Okay, so now I'm just going to put this in the machine. I want to line my needle up to where my pin is. I've lined this up with my 5/8 of an inch. I'm going to back stitch here. And then I'm just going to, again, curve this around and sew all of the way to that next pin. Little back stitch. Okay, and now there's this nice channel here to slip that nose bar into. So, where did that nose bar go? Here it is. Now we're just going to slide that in through this opening and slide it up into here. Now when you get to the center, sometimes, it didn't happen this time, but sometimes you'll hit that seam that you sewed down and you'll have to back up a little bit to get past it, back up and go forward again. So you might have to jimmy it a little bit to get past. So there you see, I've got my nose bar in place. So now I'm going to come back in here and secure the edges so it cannot slide out. So I'm going to start where that seam ends and just come out to the edge of the mask. You really don't want to hit that metal because it's going to, at the worst, break your needle. Well, I guess it could be worse than that. Break your thread. So you just want to avoid it altogether. Okay. And there you have it. That nose bar has been sewn in. You can see it folds up nice. And not as tricky as it seems like it might be. So the only thing left now is to come back over here and close up our bottom turning hole. Put a couple of little pins in there. And then finish off our top stitching. So I'm just going to start here at the corner where I left off. Now you can see this sort of has this little V to it, so when you get to the center seam, you're going to stop with your needle down and pivot just a little. Okay, and there you have it. Just a few threads to trim up and you have got a ready to go mask. Now the final step on this is to put it on, and if it gapes here on the side, you're going to top stitch in a pleat. And the directions for that are on that little step out I showed you, and they are super simple and clear. So you're basically going to fit it to your face and add a little pleat like that, and then just top stitch that down. And I think I have a finished one over here with a top stitch, yeah. So there you go, just a little top stitch pleat, and then you'll have a nice custom fit. So that is how easy it is to make one of these masks. Templates are in the shop. Nose bars, elastic, and filters are also in the shop. So if you're interested in that, you can give it a try.